Well, if you want something really fun to do this weekend, something different and very enjoyable, we got a couple guests that can tell you all about that. It's the OC Winefest. It's happening down in San Juan Capistrano this weekend. And I'd like to welcome Chad Kearns. And you are with the Geraci family of wines of the Stones Throw Winery.
Correct.
Right?
Stones Throw Winery down in San Juan Capistrano.
Close by. Who knew there were wineries in this area? And I'd like to welcome Colonel Sean McGee. You are a 30-year Marine Corps service.
34 years.
34 years. Well, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah, 34 years in the Marine Corps. I just retired on June 9th. I was medically retired because I'm a lymphoma survivor, 18 months out of chemotherapy, which help us to get to a position where we are working with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society as the beneficiary for the OC Winefest.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You know, even if you're not interested in drinking wine, if you come out and walk around, at least you're going to be in some capacity helping benefit LLS and, you know, helping us find a cure someday. So that's an important piece to me. In terms of the Winefest.
And we're going to have you talk a little bit about that in just a bit. Now, Chad, you and I go back a ways out at Geraci. So tell me a little bit about your history and why OC Winefest is important for you.
Well, you know, we've started making wine in Orange County back in '06. We started making some commercial wines, and then we finally opened our tasting room in 2011. And we've tried to get some momentum. Everybody keeps driving to Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, up to Paso Robles to do wine tasting when they really don't need to. It's a 2.5-hour drive on a Saturday morning to Temecula, but we have about a dozen wineries here in Orange County. So we've been trying to connect the wineries and get some momentum in having some wineries and wine tasting here in Orange County so people don't have to go so far. Save the gas money and buy a bottle of wine.
Right, and you're just located in Silverado Canyon.
We have our main wineries in Silverado Canyon, and we have a couple wineries up there. And then we also have the winery down in San Juan.
Right, which is a new thing for you.
It is a new thing. We took it over, we opened up just about a year ago, and we don't have a full complement of wines like we do at some of the other wineries, but we have 3 wineries. We have 3 more that are about to be released, so we will have that full complement soon.
Okay, and then because what we're showing right now is a little bit of video from when you and I were with Geraci. So how many vines do you have out there?
Out there we're planting to about 1,200 vines, mostly Rhone varietals, a little bit of Cab Franc. Down in San Juan, we have roughly about 120. It's an educational demonstration vineyard, and it is mission-style grapes. Mission grapes were brought over by the Spaniards, and when they settled all the missions, they took grapes to each different mission to make wine and to have a community type of interaction with the wines.
Okay, and a Stones Throw Winery is in San Juan Capistrano. Tell us a little bit about the venue.
The venue is actually one of the original orange orchards from Orange County. Back when it was originally established, Roger Williams built a house and planted an orchard. You can still see them when you're driving down the freeway. You can look to the right of the freeway as you're going south, and you see a lot of the orchards that are whatever's remaining. We have managed to try to salvage most of the trees on our property and started to trim them and rehab them, and they're starting to really produce great Valencia oranges.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we have the old historic water tower that still has its tank up there.
Right.
We don't let anybody go up there, but it's kind of a neat little structure. They used to pump the water up with the windmill, and then the pressure of the water would come down. That's how they would water all their vineyards.
Wow, that's great.
I wanted to ask you the varieties that you produce. And besides locally here, you must be getting grapes from other areas as well.
We do source. We source a lot of grapes from all over California. We process about 30 tons on property at Geraci. We also process about another 30 tons off-site at different locations. With our wineries here in Orange County, we try to focus on main varietals that everybody recognizes. We don't get a huge sophistication of wine tasters. We're kind of the entree level of everyone, and we're trying to really kind of get some people to experience wine and wine tasting and move up in their growth of wine.
So hence the OC Winefest.
Absolutely.
And it's not just wine, we do have some beers too, right?
You can't always drink wine. I mean, at crush time and at bottling time, I'm probably the one drinking the beer. You just can't, there's too much wine out there.
Right, exactly. So tell us about OC Winefest.
OC Winefest was kind of birthed off of LA Winefest. It's been going on for 13 or 14 years. The person that actually ran that, he is a sommelier, has a wine blog, is fairly well known in the wine industry, and he approached us and said, I'd like to maybe do something like that. We said, great, we'd like to try to organize it. We started trying to put together some wineries from our local friends. In fact, I believe every winery that's local to Orange County will be at the OC Winefest, in addition to other wineries coming from other places.
Okay.
So if people want to really get to know sort of what's available in Orange County, then they can come to the Winefest and they can find that out.
Great. Well, it has an awful lot of things going on.
Yeah,
like I
it
said, you
does.
can have beer as
We
well.
have
You
beer,
have a couple
we
of
have some
breweries.
vendors, we have
Right.
some people that make furniture out of oak.
Oh, okay.
I saw that.
We have arts and
Yeah.
crafts, things that are made out of wine bottles. There's some wine folks that are coming that are importers. They import wine into the U.S. and they actually sell directly to the consumer.
Okay.
Much like you do at a wine tasting room, but it's actually imported wine from other areas of the world.
Okay. And now before
nice.
we get to the wine tasting, which I know we're all waiting for, we'd like to have you talk a little bit about the beneficiary and
Sure,
how it
absolutely.
means to you.
So the way this came about is back in November, I think of 2014, Dr. Joel Fisher, who owns LA Winefest, approached us and said, hey, Sean, I'm interested in doing a Winefest down in Orange County. And so I said, hey, great, we'd be interested in doing that. And so time kind of rolled on a little bit, and I found myself in a position where I took over as the Deputy Commander of Expeditionary Strike Group 3 down in San Diego, which is the largest naval amphibious force in the world. And about 3 or 4 months into that tour, I was diagnosed with stage 3B lymphoma. So I immediately started chemotherapy, and then through the chemotherapy process, towards the end of it, Joel reached out to me and he said, hey, Sean, you know, I'd really still like to do this OC Winefest. And so we had some initial meetings, and what Joel has always done over the past 15 years with the LA Winefest is he's always had a beneficiary. Mm-hmm. And he said, so does anybody have any ideas for beneficiaries? And I go, I got an idea as a cancer survivor. So I said I would like to have the Leukemia Lymphoma Society as the beneficiary. Right. So I reached out to the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and they said they were in. Right. So, which was great, because you know, if for me it's personal, obviously, because I feel like I have an obligation to give back. You know, obviously there was some guy 15 or 20 years prior to me that, you know, he had cancer, and instead of just walking away from that cancer, he did fundraising. And those fundraising helped develop cures that saved my life. Right. And so I want to continue to do the same. And so my vision ultimately is, I mean, there's a business side to this. It's obviously a business. But for me, most important is that we develop this long-term relationship with Leukemia Lymphoma Society. So 10 years from now, we're still doing the OC Winefest. And hopefully by then, it's even more successful. So now we're generating hundreds of thousands of dollars that we can donate to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in order to help find a cure. Great. So that's how I got involved with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Now I'm on the Donor Development Committee. So we've done a ton of fundraisers. We had a fundraiser at my house where we raised $13,000. Then we had another fundraiser back in November as a launch to the Winefest where we raised another $13,000. I recently traveled to Mexico last month and gave a speech to a corporation, and I raised another $14,000 for LLS. So LLS has already sold 100 tickets. We give them 100 tickets, and whatever they want to sell them at. They can sell them at $1,000 a ticket or $50,000 a ticket. They've sold all those tickets. That money goes directly to LLS.
Great.
And then additional tickets, we'll give those tickets to them. And then at that point, it's a little split. So LLS gets 60% of all the tickets they sell, no matter what price they sell them at. Mm-hmm. And then the organization itself, OC Winefest, gets 40%.
Great.
So, and then the other cool thing that is important from this fundraising piece to help LLS is the success of the first Winefest. Because what happens is when you go out and try and get sponsors and people to support the event, they're going to want to know what were the ticket sales from the previous year? So this year's been tough because we got nothing. We don't have any ticket sales yet. But so, folks, if you can come out and support us, even if you're not a wine drinker, the fact that we can sell tickets, you know, if we can go back in 2019 and say, hey, we sold over 2,000 tickets to the event, then it's going to make us a lot easier to find sponsors to help support the fight for cancer and help to support LLS.
Let me clarify that. We do have a lot of ticket sales already. We are selling.
We do.
We're going to have well over 1,000 people at the event this
Great.
weekend. So yeah, it's going to be a great event.
And what are the hours?
They're I think 11 to 5.
Okay.
They may.
Yeah,
we can get our slide up again
noon
for you.
to 5 on Saturday and Sunday.
Right.
People can start arriving around 1100. That's military language. It means 11 a.m. And they can start parking and start access to the OC Winefest. But it is going to be a blast. You guys will absolutely have a good time. It's a beautiful, beautiful property. You can bring your own lawn chairs and grab a bottle of wine, sit amongst the orange groves, and and there's the food trucks. You'll have a phenomenal time.
Yeah.
And speaking of bottles of wine,
Oh.
we've got a couple right here.
Yes, we do.
Maybe we should jump in and
So,
have
Chad, what do we
Chad
have
do
here?
his thing.
I brought 2 wines. I wasn't sure what everybody was into, so everybody's standard Chardonnay
At
and
9:20 in the
Cabernet.
morning, whatever you
9:20
like.
You could go for either, but it's a little early to go for red for myself. I'm probably going to stick with the white. But we have a nice Chardonnay. It's a Paso Robles Chardonnay.
Okay.
It's an easy drinking wine. It's something that you could break out on any time of the day, whether it's with cheese in the afternoon or you can have it with a meal, nice seafood or chicken dinner.
Or a morning show at
Yeah,
9 o'clock.
This is not our norm.
No, it's not. So you mentioned this is from Central California.
Yep, we source the
And
grapes.
And now, do you source the grapes, but you crush them down here, or they crush them for you there?
We take a refrigerated truck up,
Okay.
and we bring the grapes down here. We drop them down to about 30 degrees, drop them into a cold soak, and allow them to soak
Okay.
on skins, and then crush them and press them if it's a white, or just crush them and ferment them if it's
Right.
a red, down here on property.
Okay.
All right, Chad, so tell us a little bit about what we're going to be drinking.
Again, it's an easy drinking wine. You're going to get some citrus on the front end, a little bit of pear and some apple in it.
Okay.
It has some oak in it. We've taken this to run through malolactic fermentation, so you get that nice full mouthfeel. It's not going to bite. It's not extremely acid. It's like I said, it's an easy drinking, nice white wine.
Okay.
So low in tannins.
Correct.
Yes.
That's good.
Very smooth.
Very smooth.
A bit on the buttery side. Nice.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
Which-
the malolactic fermentation.
Yeah, which kind of goes back to the Chardonnays that in the 80s they had. Of course, those were oaky.
Well,
big
Jess Jackson
oak.
did a great job.
Yes, Kendall Jackson.
Educating everybody what California
Yeah.
Chardonnay was supposed to taste like. There's a big movement right
That's
now
true, yeah.
to switch out, and we do make some that aren't as oaky and buttery
Yeah,
as this.
this
but
has just got a nice balance to
you know,
it. Yeah.
if you go in the grocery store and you look at all those 3.5-inch sections, there's butter, there's
Yeah.
smoking loon, there's all these different things that are pushing the wine, and
Right.
You kind of have to decide which flavor you're going to have. They're all good. I don't have a problem with any wine that you can find out there, but when you're starting to figure out what your mood's going to be and what your dinner's going to be, that's kind of when you start to pick out your wine.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think that's really important. And I like you mentioned Kendall Jackson, and I used to work in the restaurant business. Kendall Jackson, Chateau Saint Jean, those are
Yep.
the big ones back then.
Yeah,
but
and really, it's
yeah.
not what Chardonnay was in the
Right.
in Old World. We have
Yeah.
Old World wines and New World wines. We're taking a tour to our wine club is going to the Rhone. The Rhine. We're
Rhine,
going to go on a
yeah.
Rhine River cruise, and we're going to go to Alsace and visit some of those areas that make an Alsatian style wine, which is very different than most California wines.
Great.
This is very nice.
Great. Well, thank you for the
And things
information.
have evolved too. I think, Chad, you
Yeah.
can comment on that. Like, there's a traditional taste that you would expect from Merlot or Cab or Pinot, but they're not all the same now anymore because you can taste a Pinot, but it's not a traditional Pinot.
Right.
I was at a tasting with some Somms last week, and we actually had 2 Pinots that came out, and a third level Somm picked it as a Syrah.
Oh.
Depending on the winemaker. Now it was an aged wine. It was a 22-year-old Pinot, so it was a little bit different than you're going to find in the
And Sean,
stores.
you bring up a very good point, because Zinfandels used to be known as very spicy and peppery. And a Zinfandel I had recently, I forget what winery it was, but it was nowhere near. If someone just gave that to me, I would say that's
more
not
like
a Zin.
a full body Pinot,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, totally
Peppers
different.
were extracted, and
And I was kind of looking forward to that again.
Well, in California and the U.S. makes it fun.
Yeah.
Because we don't have laws. We don't have laws governing us
Right.
and limiting what we can do. So you'll find a lot of non-conventional blends. So, California is a fun place to go wine tasting.
All
It
right.
certainly is. And so for this weekend, the OC Winefest,
Winefest.
Saturday and Sunday.
Yes.
Thank you both. We really appreciate the information and the wine.
And
Thanks.
cheers.
Cheers.
Yes. OC Winefest this
OC
weekend, San Juan.
Winefest.
Give it a try.
We'll be right back after this.
thank you.